Good morning, everybody. It's 10:30. I would like to start the meeting. As you can see, the etiquette will be that everybody is turning off his microphone and camera, and that only the presenters will use their camera. If you have questions, use the chat, and the session will be recorded for later use. This is the start of the agROBOfood digital meeting week. What are we going to do is presenting. What's happening? Can you? Yeah, it's back again. So what can you expect? This morning we have a 1.5 hour session with a couple of presentations with content, and the rest of the week, every morning from 10:30 till 12 o'clock, there will be also sessions. So we call it the digital week. Opening is from my Kees Lokhorst, project coordinator of the agROBOfood project, and just to have a short reminder, what are we doing within the project? So just a short introduction. What are we working on? We are working on the EU ambition that is actively stimulating that also robotics is a very important issue, also within the agro-food system, but also supporting the concept of working with digital innovation hubs and competence centers. To work on this EU ambition, we've set up the project agROBOfood, and the official name is Boosting the Adoption of the Robotic Technologies in the European Agri-Food Sector. And it is part of a group of innovation actions that are coordinated by the CSA Rodan. So besides agri-food production, also on healthcare, maintenance, and road maps are active in activities. Who are working? Well, we are working with a consortium of 38 partners. I hope you can find your logo. They should be in all, but those are the current project partners. Besides the project partners, we want to enlarge our network. So also associated partners, associated members from industry will become part of our network. But these 38 partners are working together within the EU project. What are we doing within this project? Well, in a sense, we are building a pan-European network of digital innovation hubs. And this pan-European network should be dedicated to robotics and to the agri-food sector. And for that, we adopted more or less the services from the Rodan definition. We adopted more or less the concept of working with digital innovation hubs and competence centers as stimulated within the EU. And we build our own project around it. And what are the main steps, as far as I can see, because I can explain it in work packages we have, but in a sense, we are building a network of digital innovation hubs and competence centers. We want to professionalize this network by loading it with knowledge concerning services, and then these services are dealing with technical, business, and ecosystem services. And we would like to show that this concept of working with digital innovation hubs has added value, and that working with that network being active and behind the scene to support the one-stop shops that the digital innovation hubs are. We also want to show it in innovation experiments. We started with 7 initial innovation experiments at the start of the project, so at the June 2019. So we are now a little bit in our second year. And also we would like to, or we are using half of our budget in OpenCalls to even show more and then give more SMEs the ability to experience with this network, and also to show that robotics in agri-food systems will work. We also have the job to expand or to work on sustainability of this network. So that's an activity we started already a bit, because you just can say at the end of the project, okay, how will it be continued? So that is something you have to prepare already in advance. Where are we? And I want to keep it short, because those are more or less the activities in network building. I think all the procedures are now in line. We work with our website. We work with Basecamp for the agROBOfood members. The self-assessment procedure for the digital innovation hubs has been developed and then is now in operation. We specifically worked with a regional approach, and also with the expectation that in every will be national contact points, so that it will be very local oriented, and that companies really have access to the agROBOfood network. So without giving numbers, because that will come later on during this week, I think in the network building we made good progress, and also having the open call, the first open call, really showed a lot of activity within the network in bringing people together and supporting them in connecting to each other. Well, on the visibility of the project, we also made, I think, some good steps within the RODAN. We found our position as agROBOfood, because we started a little bit later, but everybody is now aware that we are working, that we have our open call. Also, later on, you can see some presentations from TU Delft. Within the ROS-A community, we are active also within EU robotics. So the network and all communication tools are in place. Loading the network, well, that's something we are working on. It's experiencing also together with the initial and the innovation experiments. So we have a good idea of our capacity and what kind of services there are in the network. So starting position is good, but we also have to professionalize on bringing more professionality in, keeping up with this type of services. Well, to demonstrate and test on Wednesday, you can have a look at the 7 innovation experiments. They all will present their progress on a variety of topics. And after my presentation, the results of the first open call, at least the proposals, also will show that there is a lot of interest in our agROBOfood network. And to make the network sustainable, we already started discussions and to get some ideas from the RODAN community, from lessons from other projects like Smart Agri Hub, and also we involved the Industrial Advisory Board in this. So in this second year, at least that's the ambition I have, we should get a clear picture of what road we will have to follow on making this network more professional and sustainable also when the project ends after a 4 years period. So this is a quick glance of what I see where we are within the project. That's the reason why we organized this week, because normally we should have a physical meeting once or 2 times per year, but we scheduled that in May, but due to COVID, that couldn't take place. Everybody can accept and can understand that. So we have been thinking what is the next best alternative, and we thought that organizing this digital week of agROBOfood might be a good replacement. For that we need indeed your activity, your involvement, because having a network without involvement of the people working in the innovation hubs and competence centers to support the innovation experiments, to support the processes, it will not work. So today we chose for a few presentations on the open call and on the work of best practices for the introduction of the ROS community, and also some interesting thoughts of how to deal with IPR and knowledge management. And these are written in deliverables, but I can expect that not all people are reading these deliverables that can be found on our Basecamp. But I thought it was very interesting to also show the results of them. And also the coming days, you will be involved in getting an update, but also are asked for your input. And also on Friday, there will be a dedicated work session of all the regional communities. So that's what I would like to tell at the start of this meeting. And I don't think there are questions in the chat, so I think we can. I can stop sharing my screen and give the floor to Dragana Petkovic, who will introduce us in the first results of the open call for innovation experiments.
Hello, everyone. I'm really glad that I'm here and excited to be here. This is the second week of actually the third week of my engagement within the agROBOfood project. So I'm new, and this digital week actually came as a great opportunity for me to quickly cover some ground in terms of my work, but also as a challenge because I needed to grasp all of the important elements of the project and the details as well. So I hope you can see the screen. Is everything fine?
Yes, yeah. We can.
Yeah. Okay.
We cannot see you.
Okay. Can you see me as well?
Not yet.
Not yet. Let me just take a look. I'm sorry for this delay. So I'm turning on my camera.
Perfect.
We can see you now. Yeah.
So yeah, here I am. So we can start now. So today I will be presenting about our open calls. So what we planned to achieve with them and what's our current status. So we have one open call with evaluations underway and the industrial challenges open call that is happening in the following months. So as you know, agROBOfood aims at boosting this adoption of robotic technologies in the European agri-food sector. So the goal is to establish a network of digital innovation hubs in the agri-food domain. And this sector is under a lot of contradictory pressures. So we have a pressure to produce more food on less suitable land and for lower cost. We have to protect the environment too, as well at the same time. So The one way to combine these pressures is to actually increase the use of robotic sensing and automation in the agri-food industry. As we know, across Europe, there are many excellent organizations who are working in agri-food robotics, and some of them started in robotics, and then they want to expand their work in terms of including it in agri-food industry, and others are experts in agriculture, and they're wanting to move to robotics. But still, we have the issue of majority of agri-food companies who are not aware of these current abilities of modern robots, so they often lack some skills and knowledge and business models to apply robotics in a way that would fit their needs. So the aim for our agROBOfood OpenCalls, the goals are actually to stimulate, to inspire, to finally support innovation experiments in industrial challenges that meet user needs and they have clear market potential. The goal of the calls is not only to select and fund the best of the best, but to actually use this call as a mechanism to stimulate, to promote the connections between the players and the cooperation between agri-food sector players, the end users, and also, of course, digital innovation hubs, so that we can expand our network. So the goals of the Open Call one were to actually expand and grow the network and the cooperation in the agri-food sector in Europe. And through this call, we are finding innovative robotic solutions for the agri-food sector, and we are supporting SMEs and startups in their robotic transformation. We are also allowing the European automation industry to benefit from these opportunities of guiding, of supporting, of teaming up with startups. So our goal here with this call was actually to attract a high number of applicants. We wanted to have a more conducive environment to promote cooperation. We wanted to gather applications from all parts of the EU because there are different levels of development here. The call wanted to be inclusive, wanted to be inviting, and also, of course, wanting to be able to pick the best of the best within this competition. So this call was also a learning experience for the project, and that experience will influence the next calls and the plans for the project. So this was actually a way for us to reach out to this wider agri-food network, to map out the players, their current cooperations and solutions, and this knowledge and experience is now valuable for the remaining calls. So for the first open call for industrial experiments, it recently ended with receiving applications, and we have the results. So we received 111 applications in total, out of which 93 were unique. And this map here that you can see actually shows the total number of SMEs that have applied from the countries in regional clusters in various consortia. But on the next map, you can take a look and see the number of SMEs that applied in various consortia to this open call from individual countries. So overall, we had 93 applications received that mobilized 309 SMEs. And 83% of those SMEs are established in 25 EU countries, and the remaining 17% in 9 eligible third countries. So 6 out of 10 SMEs were mobilized from Spain, Italy, Greece, Netherlands, Serbia, France, Germany, and the UK. So the average consortium size was 3 entities, 3.35 actually, and the average requested grant was 445,000 euros, a bit more. And we have engaged 30 expert evaluators in this call. They were also engaged through an open call, and we ensured that each proposal is evaluated by 3 experts with specific expertise that is related either to robotics, to agriculture, and the business aspects of the proposals. So these are some lessons that we have learned through this open call. So firstly, we found out that it is really wise to keep the system based on regional contexts, so that the digital innovation hubs take a role in promoting the call, in communicating with potential applicants and SMEs. Since they present these centers of gravity, so they are the places where various stakeholders, developers, users, investors, and so on, they actually interact. And this is the way they ensure this synergy and cooperation. So in the end, the users are of course, inclined to look for robotic solutions and activities and services closer to home. Secondly, matchmaking was a demand. It was actually a highly requested service within this call. We received many inquiries from SMEs looking for potential partners, and this aspect could be and is a part of ecosystem and matchmaking services. And in the future, possibly, we can create an online tool that will enhance and make this matchmaking easier for the applicants. The email correspondence within this call was absolutely necessary. So we received many questions about the open call from the applicants, and we learned that even though we really carefully prepared all the documents for the open call and the guide for applicants and the project proposal template, still many questions and clarifications about the details were asked from us. So I expect an influx of emails during the following calls as well. The postponement of the deadline due to the pandemic actually brought us in more applications. So naturally, the SMEs, when the pandemic started, focused all of their activities in ways to actually overcome this crisis, as well as we all did, I guess. So they weren't really focused on writing project proposals at that time. But the postponement of the deadline actually brought us in more applications because the SMEs had more time to prepare everything. And lastly, the applicants were actually really curious and they showed interest in agROBOfood service provision. In this call, this was left open-ended as a question within the project proposal, a template for them to suggest their needs and suggest possible services that they would like to have from agROBOfood. But this open-ended way of asking them to provide us, this actually created some confusion. So for the next call, we will aim to define and present the possible services better, so that they can, so the applicants can actually be more well acquainted with what they can get from the agROBOfood network. These are the next steps for our open call. So we are finishing the first stage of evaluation this week. The second stage then, a legal and financial check is following, contracting as well. And then we have implementation. The sub-projects start with implementation on December 1st. In terms of upcoming open calls, so on the October 28th, we are opening the Industrial Challenges open call. And this challenge actually has 2.7 million euros dedicated to it. And the overall concept is that real industry problems need real tech solutions. So we will be choosing up to 10 projects within this open call. As you can see, the project size is up to 300,000 euros. And that is also the budget per partner because we are having single applicants this time. So this challenge is open for all European SMEs and startups, just like the last one was. And it will be based upon the principle that this interaction actually that happens between startups and big corporates can add some beneficial value for money innovation. So the industry will have opportunity to buy the solution or invest in the SMEs which elaborated it. And on the other hand, the SMEs will gain access to funding through the call. They can utilize Digital Innovation Hub services and have the opportunity to mobilize private resources. So either in the form of contracts with big companies, which is as big customers, which is really important for the growth, or in the form of equity investment or takeover. So we are looking for single applicants this time. We aim at selecting 8 to 10 sub-projects that tackle a commercial need within agri-food sector and offer a solution based around robot technologies. This time, a bit differently from the open call one, the challenges are defined more specifically. So the applicants will be choosing one of the 5 defined challenges to address. And they will be tackling both a technical challenge and a challenge that is related to a socio-economic, ethical, or environmental aspect. And these challenges were defined in cooperation with the Industry Advisory Board. of the agROBOfood project, since the goal of selecting topics for this open call is to address the needs that are present and connect innovative entrepreneurs with larger industry players through these collaborations. So this is the timeline for the Industrial Challenges open call. The call will be announced on the agROBOfood portal. It starts on October 20th, as I've already mentioned, and the deadlines for applications will be January 20th. Then we follow on with evaluation and selection, and contracting, of course, that will be happening up until the end of April. And then the implementation of the sub-projects will start on the 1st of May. So the open call with all accompanying documents will be published soon. It's a great opportunity for SMEs in the robotics sector to develop some innovative solutions. And we invite you to stay tuned for this, and we will kindly ask for your support in sharing the call and the information within your networks. So thank you for your attention, and sure, feel free to contact me with any questions. Thanks.
Thanks, Dragana. There is one question. What does unique mean? You presented 111 proposals and 94 unique.
Yes, the applicants had the opportunity to actually test the platform. So they have been uploading their project templates, proposal templates, and they have been only the last timestamp of the proposal was actually accepted as the final template in their final application. So these 111 actually include the test applications that they have also submitted during this entire application submission time. So they had the opportunity to test the platform.
Okay. Well, I see that no other questions are asked in the chat. So Dragana, thanks for your presentation and these I think impressive numbers. So we are curious about the final selected proposals, but we will hear it soon.
Yes.
Then I think we can go to the presentations from TU Delft. Martijn Wisse and Tingjia Chang were asked to give us some insights in the deliverable that they were writing on the best practices and also the ROS activities. So Martijn, I assume you will start?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, the floor is yours.
Okay, can you also see my face now? I don't see myself.
Yes, we can see you.
Oh, okay, nice. So I think I will take approximately 10 minutes and then we can switch to Karen, formerly Tingjia Chang, who will take over from me. So we wrote this deliverable, the 1.15 best practices in developing open platform for agri-food robotics. And maybe not that many people read it, but I would still recommend to do so. And so this is my sort of advertisement call. So we are, we are TU Delft. We have an interest in the agROBOfood project, mostly for the open source software work that is mostly centered around the open source platform ROS. And our contributions lie mostly in work packages 1 and 4. We have some experience, we have a lot of experience with ROS. We won also the Amazon Picking Challenge. We have one of the main architects in our midst. We have some experience also with retail and with food processing. And you'll mostly hear from Karen and myself. Okay, so this deliverable, best practices in developing open platform for agri-food robotics, had the purpose to give an overview of the state of the art in agriculture robotics and really focus on the open source best practices. So not necessarily everything, but really focus on open source. How is that done currently? And to already give you a spoiler, the conclusion basically is that we think, based on our research, that future agriculture robots should probably contain all of those components listed below. So don't waste your time now reading all of them, because we're going to go through them step by step. So we used about 150 publications, some of which are very rich web sources, and also a lot of scientific publications to create this deliverable. So it's really a condensed collection of interesting references. So that's why I recommend that you take a look at it. We also thank the agROBOfood network for their input in this deliverable. As you can see in the picture, even though the project is focused on agriculture, it's really still quite a lot of different functionalities that we could investigate. And based on the literature, we found that for this report, it was easiest to focus on 3 of those, so not all of the 6 tasks that you can see in the picture, but we categorized them in 3 categories of increasing difficulty, so to speak. So the first is robots for scouting and data collection. So they basically just have to move around and have active sensors and gather information. Then the second is for weed control and targeted spraying. So this already requires some manipulation, but not very precise manipulation. And then automated harvesting really being the summum of everything, the most difficult part for robots. So I'll first show you some images, some pictures of those 3. So you probably recognize your own work in these pictures. We found from the literature sources and from our network, we found a lot of examples of robots that are mainly intended to drive around and take pictures and gather other information like gas sensors, soil samples, etc. So from these robots, we already learned a lot about how open source tools are being used and which tools are being used. So that's what I'm going to focus on next. After I've shown you also some examples for the second category, weed control and targeted spraying. So there are no references in these slides. So even if you get these slides, you still just see fancy pictures and you still don't know what these robots are. But if you go to the deliverable, you will actually find all of the references to all of these robots. So you maybe see something that you can use as inspiration for yourself. And well, most of the robots that you see in this picture are autonomous, but some of them are really just robotic systems that are being coupled in the front or the back of a tractor, which is usually still manned, at least in Europe. Then, and the third category, which is still the most research kind of category, I would say, not as close to practical implementation yet, but there's a lot of open source information available there as well for harvesting, both outdoors and indoors in horticulture. Okay, so the best practices, we separated them in 2 parts. So there's the technology part and there's sort of the organizational part. And I'm first going to go through a number of technological findings for the best practices. So the first part of that is hardware. So we looked at which hardware do people usually use for their robotic systems. And it turns out that the best practice that we recommend is that for the mobile platform and for the manipulator that does the motion of the end effector, basically, those things are best left to commercial suppliers, because there's a lot of nitty-gritty details in that already been solved for you. However, we found that basically almost all of the information that we saw used custom application-specific end effectors, because each fruit, each product, but also each circumstance, each environment has different requirements for the actual grasping or manipulation. So that's best practice is that you still want to have that developed in-house specifically for you. So the best practice that we noticed for the use of sensors is, there's always a GPS involved, differential GPS, or if you want real high accuracy, there's RTK GPS. All robots basically use LiDAR, which is a light-based radar kind of system for an environmental surrounding 3D picture of the robot. They all, of course, use IMUs, inertial measurement units, which is available in every phone as well. So that's nothing special. The one thing that we did not find for to give a recommendation on is how to do indoor navigation in horticulture. It's still really difficult to get good GPS signal, and also other types of navigation are still a challenge there. So there's not one recommended solution. For the perception sensors, for perceiving the crop or the weed, yeah, there's lots of information in the document about 2D and 3D image sensors that are being used, and the multispectral sensors as well. And here we noticed that basically almost all applications still have to find a way to deal with sunlight. And in many cases, the solution is to basically use a big black box around whatever operation needs to be done, so that all external light is being blocked. I'm doing in time, so that's still fine. For the software framework, we found that the best practice that's being most used is for the low-level communication, that it makes sense to use ISOBus, which is an ISO standard communication protocol. Very also in other fields it's standard as well, but for agriculture it's being called ISOBus. So it is recommended to stick to that for the simple component-to-component communication. For the middleware, basically the one main framework, even though there are other frameworks, the main framework that we have encountered is ROS. And we are happy, of course, about that, because we are putting all effort on ROS ourselves as well. For navigation, we noticed that the standard algorithms for simultaneous localization and mapping, SLAM, are being used a lot. And for 3D data processing, it looks like a very commonly used library is the so-called Point Cloud Library, PCL, which allows you to process the data coming in from 3D vision sensors. Once again, the document provides a lot more information and a lot more references. So this is just an overview. For crop detection and grasp planning, we noticed that since a number of years, deep learning is really being center stage. And our recommendation is that anyone who enters the field should really use that as well. There are still some publications out there that do not yet use deep learning, but the results are fairly good. So the recommendation is to go for it, specifically because there are open data sets available, so you can already pre-train your deep learning networks for crops that are similar to yours. I'll show another slide about that in a second. Another thing that we have seen used a lot is the Open Motion Planning Library, which is then sort of wrapped up in a MoveIt package, which is part of the more or less standard ROS distribution. So most people use that for planning how to move and how to avoid obstacles, parts of plants, and grasp the crop and move without disturbing anything. Now, about these open data sets, this is also included in the document, which is taken from a publication as shown below. So there are really a lot of open data sets that you can use for training your deep learning network for recognizing plants, recognizing crops, etc. So that was my technological part of the presentation, and then there's a smaller part which focuses more on how to organize yourself when you want to focus on using open source materials for developing agriculture products and systems. And as an organization, we think the most important thing is that you stay connected to the communities, the development communities. And we think that there are three main conferences that are really important. Well, we have to see how these things develop with COVID, but someday COVID will be gone, I hope. So there's this FIRA event in France in December that I think you should be connected to. Of course, there's ROS-Con, and there's an international conference on agricultural robotics. In addition to those conferences, there are also, I think, three communities that are really worthwhile to be connected to. The ROS Agriculture community that Karen will talk about, a community called FroboMind, and the IEEE Agriculture Robotics and Automation Technical Committee, which can also make recommendations on some standards. Now, in terms of open source software, this is still this day and age a little bit controversy. Should we go for it or not? Because whoa, it's open source. So we have two things to say about that, and more in the document. The first is you really want to consider to develop and publish your developments as open source software. So you use ROS, you use an enormous amount of free software. Takes a while to get into it, but then you can develop your own system. But you will also notice mistakes in other people's open source software, and you will fix them. Now, really, you want to publish those back to the community, and the reason is because this is going to give you a very positive reputation amongst other developers, and this will allow you to attract the most talented developers to your company or organization, because they know that's the place where things happen. So this is really a reason to really start contributing well. And the second issue is about licenses. Many people are afraid for open source for the licenses because they all still have this Linux issue in mind. In many open source licenses with Linux, when you use the software and you modify it, you have to publish it back to the community. Now you have to understand that this is not true for ROS. It is a business-friendly license, so you can basically take all of it, wrap it around, put it in a wrapper and say, this is my product for you, and just sell it. And you're not requested to publish all of your own developments back to the community. So that really gives you a chance to use it when it makes profit and to publish your own developments when you want to attract talent. So those are the most important things. Now for standards, we listed the number of standards in the document I already said, and the other are about safety, also connected to the safety of autonomous cars. And the last one is really about dual use, so intended functionality. That's the I and the F. SOTIF is about intended functionality. So you want to look into those as well. So that's basically the summary of this deliverable. So to conclude, I think you want to stay connected to the very active communities. You really want to use the free and open source tools and contribute back to them so that you can attract talent. And in terms of the vision data aspect, I think deep learning is the way to go for our field. That's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Martijn. a lot of interest in getting the deliverable to read it. So the communication is all about that. I have one question. Most of the examples are from arable farming and for the glasshouse production systems. Since agROBOfood is also working on the food system and on livestock, do you expect more or less the same kind of best practices, or nothing is to say about it?
So that's a good point. When writing the deliverable, we didn't focus so much on livestock, indeed. So I have to just go with my my active recollection of things. But yes, in general, we will see more or less the same issues, and also the same best practices. And the one thing I immediately think of is this Dutch company called Lely that makes the cow milking robots, not just for milking, but also robots that drive around the farm and feed the cows and clean the stuff, etc. And there we encounter the same best practices and also the same questions about deep learning and the same questions about open source. Yes.
Okay, thank you. I think now we can share the screen of Karen.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm sharing now. Can you see me or the presentation?
I can see both.
Yeah. Okay, floor is yours.
Great. Hello, everyone. So today I'm going to briefly present what is the current development in ROS agriculture, and mainly focus on the European side, which is the community that TU Delft we are trying to facilitate and store. So currently we have two main groups based on the geographical areas. One is the ROS Agriculture America, and the other is us, Europe. And the recurrent attendees usually in the leadership meetings are composed by the founder of the ROS Agriculture, whose name is Matt Droder, and me and my colleague, Gijs van der Hoorn. Martijn has also mentioned in the slide before. And so far, we have quite many ongoing business. One is we are trying to reaching out people to the Asia, reaching out to potential ROS user in Pacific Asia. And also we are trying to contact a company called Giant Software, which is the company who created a farming simulator video game. I'll come to this later. I will explain why we are contacting them. And we are also thinking about organizing a virtual competition as an initiative. As for housekeeping of this community, we created an agricultural category in ROS Discourse. And this is the place where we post community meeting announcements or the meeting minutes, etc. And we also have Slack as private channel. Next. So in the European side, we also have monthly community meetings. Initially, TU Delft, we try to come up with topics to discuss with other people, but now it's more of whoever is interested to bring up their own topics or their own updates of anything. They are welcome. So some important ongoing topics are about the progress of the working groups. Another one is there might be, according to Christoph, there might be a potential track agriculture application for ROS Industrial this year, for the ROS Industrial Conference this year. And another one is the coming ROSCOM. We would like to have a montage collection that to showcase in the event. So far, the regular meeting attendees are composed by these organizations. As you can see, there are many, most of the people are from like universities or research and technology organizations. And I only put logos of institutions which at least attended twice for the community meeting. So yeah, we have people from, this so far right now. There are more, but many people also only join one. So it's not fair to these institutions. And until now, as far as I know, we have 2 working groups, and one is called Datasets Working Group, and the other is Simulation Working Group. And this group, the Simulation Working Group, is so far only developed internally within TU Delft. The initial idea is that we wanted to have a simulation set up for the agriculture open world that can be representative. Yeah, that can be representative for the agriculture open world. And we like Heis, my colleague, came across this amazing video game called Farming Simulator. That's why we are trying to contact them. And we were like really intrigued by the details of the game. Like there are like many various ranges of near realistic models available. So as an initial proof of concept, we were trying to control one vehicle in a game using ROS. And now we have achieved that, and we have achieved more than that. So I'm going to show, or maybe I talk about this, and I'll show a video later. So now we are able to control all the vehicles in the game in the game with ROS. And in order to control things in the game, you need to like read data from the game and write data into the game. So we are able to read data from the game via NamePipe. Like it's a communication between pipe server and clients, and we can get odometry data of multi-vehicle and publishing those data as ROS message. And we are also able to write data to the game using shared memory segment between the game, which is a Lua scriptable site, and the ROS. We use Python. And we are also able to control the time and the time and the weather, and spawn any objects in any arbitrary location in the games, and also able to teleport the vehicles or players from point A to B through the ROS services. And we are also like partially able to convert Gazebo models to the FarmSim model. So whatever Gazebo available, you can also import it into the game. So there's a I need to keep. Oh, I need to hurry up. Sorry. So the demo is so in this demo I need to click. Sorry. So in this demo, this is 2 vehicles will control accordingly to the output of joystick. I use joystick to control these 2 vehicles with ROS, and we publish all the vehicles poses and twist as ROS message. So you can see, it stops? How come? Wait, sorry. Why it stops? Yeah, so here you can visualize the odometry message RVs, and there's a moving frame here. It's the tram in the game, and these 2 vehicles, the TF, the odometry is here. So basically now, yeah, like we can control, we can spawn as many vehicles as we want in the game, and we also can control all of them like simultaneously. So yeah, that's it. I'll show another one because we don't have enough time. So yeah, so you can see the farming sim, the sim is like really intriguing. Like it's like the detail is really amazing. So And this one is this one is the one we converted from the Gazebo model into the game model. That this is the robot platform. Oh, sorry, what happened? Sorry. Yeah, so this one is a robot platform called Boxer. Is the one is a platform we use for another project, and you can also see here is the Laylee cow feeding robot. It's called Yulo, I guess. Yes. So this the behavior is like sport car, because we still need the configuration file we use here is like it's a sport car. So the behavior is like sport car. Like, so there's still exhaust coming from the car, but it's intriguing. I mean, at least to me, it's entertaining to see the ROS side importing to this game. So we don't have time. I'll go to the next one. So, however, there's not just success in the community. We're also facing some problems regarding the community engagement. It's not easy to engage people or organization developers, as we have seen people only join once, and they are not becoming like recurrent attendees. And so and also another problem is that apart from the FarmSim simulation working group, we don't see that much activity in other working group. I don't know, like perhaps due to like people are very busy in focusing on their particular topic, and it's still a really small community, so it's really difficult to make people or to find people to find sufficient people interested in collaborating with us or with the whole community. So, but we even so we are still trying to like working toward, we're trying to work toward growing this community. So the first approach we are trying now is to going abroad, and we have been trying to reach out, as I say, to reach interested people in Asia. And also we're thinking about to organize a virtual competition. So we need to get sponsors, and and we are also starting locally as finding interested people in like Netherlands. It might sound like contradictory, but like going abroad is not going abroad and locally can be done in parallel. So it's not like the one is not inclusive to the other. So okay, so the important short term for now is to grow the community. So we need as more people as we can, and like for TU Delft, we are definitely willing to like facilitate the growing of the community. But we also think that we are not the only institution engaged in this, and definitely not telling people what they should do. So yes, we need more people to actually contribute to this community. And there are more like concrete short-term goal is to the one I already mentioned, like to showcase to showcase a demo in the ROS-Com. So now the proposal in our mind is to have like Matt Groter, the founder, said that he has an idea in his mind is to drive like from the farm into the field using ROS navigation too. So we're trying to achieve this with Farming Simulator. So it would be cool. So that's it. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, thank you, Karen. Time is speeding up. I think that there are no questions on the chat, but it's showing the importance that also the ROS agricultural community is starting up and needs involvement from partners, like we have the same challenge in the agROBOfood network. So the coming coming year, we have to find out how both networks can benefit from each other. And as a response to the mentioning of FIRA, that will happen this year on 8 to 10 December, and it will be a fully digital meeting. And the agROBOfood project will also attend that FIRA meeting, and we will have there also a digital booth. So thanks, Martijn and Karen. And I would like to go to the next presentation. And that also is from a deliverable where I found some chapters that are really interesting on IPR and knowledge management. And I asked Stavros Tsitouras, I hope I pronounce it well, to give us a presentation of what he would like to share with us. The floor is yours.
Hello, thank you, Case. Thank you very much. Can you see my screen now?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So, hello, good morning, everybody. I'm Stavros Tsitouras. I work at Biosense Institute, and today's presentation is going to be an introduction intellectual property right and knowledge management. Let's briefly have a look at the structure of the presentation, which is divided in 3 parts. The first part of the presentation is an introduction to IPR, and we have the introduction to IPR basic concepts, IPR and Horizon 2020, and a part about agROBOfood and IPR. So the first part is strongly connected with deliverable 7.3 that Keith already mentioned. The second part of the presentation has to do with IPR and robotics and robots. So we're going to have a look at the robotics IP landscape, what can actually be protected from a robot. And a very interesting part of the presentation is whether do robots and artificial intelligence have IP rights. We're going to have a look at that as well. And to finish the presentation, we're going to briefly have a look at the case study that actually stems from agROBOfood project, and to see how we did try to patent some robotic solutions. So let's start with the first part of the presentation, which is introduction to IPR and some basic concepts. So to begin with, we need to define what IPR means. So intellectual property means the legal rights which result from intellectual activity in the industrial, scientific, and artistic fields. Moreover, the intellectual property usually refers to the creation of the mind, which includes artistic works, inventions, symbol names, and images used in commerce. Intellectual property was first officially recognized in the Paris Convention in 1883 and the Berne Convention in 1886. So it's actually a very old story, to put it this way. One question that needs to be answered is why IPR are important. Which is the reason actually to promote and protect intellectual property? The first and obvious answer would be like so that nobody else would steal our job and actually exploit it. This is the obvious answer. Besides, of course, that there are 3 main reasons. First of all, the progress and well-being of the humanity actually rests in the capacity to create and invent new works. So without the protection, we will be not capable of producing new work. The legal protection, of course, of new creations actually encourages the commitment for additional resources for further innovation. So innovation would stop without protecting legally the innovation itself. And finally, the promotion and protection of intellectual property overall spurs economic growth and, of course, create new jobs, new industries, and so on and so forth. Another question is how does the average person benefits from IPR? 3 examples here. For instance, the film recording software company would not be actually here without the copyright protection. So we won't be able to see our movies, play our games, and so on and so forth. Finally, without the rewards provided by the patent system, also researchers and inventors would have actually no incentive to continue producing new work because the work cannot be protected, so they cannot have benefits from the work. And last but not least, of course, consumers themselves would not be able to actually confidently buy products and services which are covered by reliable trademarks and, of course, enforcement mechanisms in order to discourage piracy. So let's move on forward to the presentation after we have a brief idea about intellectual property right, and let's have a look at some basic concepts. Intellectual property is divided into 2 main categories. The first category is industrial property, which includes patents, trademarks, industrial designs. And the second category is copyright, which includes literary works like poems, novels, films, music, and so on and so forth. So we're going to have a look at each category in a little bit more detail, but very briefly. So let's start with a patent. What is a patent? Patent is an exclusive right, legal right, actually, granted for innovation, a product or a process, and it provides a new way of doing something or offers a new technical solution to a problem. Of course, what can be patented or what cannot be patented can be the discussion of a new presentation. So it's quite complex, but let's stick to that for now. Okay, so a patent gives the owner the right to prevent others from making, using, or selling, of course, the invention without his or her permission. In patents, protection is granted for a limited period of time, of course, and usually, generally, is 20 years. Patents, of course, has another important characteristic, which actually implies a disclosure of the protected invention, because in order to get the patent, you need to disclose what is in the patent. So this actually fosters the dissemination of innovation. So after the patent is expired, to put it this way, everybody else can actually exploit the solution. Some very, very famous examples of patents is the light bulb, the internal consumption engine, the telephone, GPS, Bluetooth, and electronic device, which is the iPhone. Actually, iPhone was patented in 2007 with the title electronic device. So let's move to trademarks. What is a trademark? A trademark is a sign which distinguishes the goods and services of one company from another, as simple as that. Can be a word, logo, device, and usually a trademark, of course, is also referred to a brand. It's known as a brand. And of course, the main function of the trademark is to identify the commercial origin of a product. Here we can see some very, very famous examples of trademarks and brands, and we can understand the importance of a trademark by watching only these brands here. So let's move to industrial designs. An industrial design is actually the outward appearance of the whole or part of a product, and it resulting from the features such as line, colors, shape, texture, and etc. The design is very important of a product because sometimes it's actually the main reason that consumers choose one design over another. So by protecting industrial design, we can protect the appearance of a product. The trade secret, another IPR concept is trade secret. A trade secret so is a valuable piece of information for an enterprise, for an organization, that is actually treated as confidential, and by having that kind of information, we actually, the enterprise can have a competitive advantage. So trademarks can be strategic, a trade secret can be strategic for decades. For example, a recipe, like the Coca-Cola recipe, for instance, or ephemeral, or results of marketing study, the price and launch date of a product. So there we exploit the trade secrets accordingly. Trade secrets, of course, do not require administrative or procedural formalities in order to be protected. However, of course, the owner of the secret must find ways to keep that secret safe. There are, of course, ways to do that in enterprises. Copyright. We move on to copyright. So copyright, or author's right, it's the term used to describe the rights that creators have over their literary, scientific, and artistic work. Some elements included in copyright is novels, poems, etc., computer programs and databases. Here we also have software. Although software protection is a very, very tricky, to say that. If we want actually to protect software, we have to go do it through copyright. And of course, copyright also includes films, music and composition, paintings, and so on and so forth. So after having a very, very brief explanation about IPR, let's move on to IPR in Horizon 2020, since the project is a Horizon project, actually. And let's have a look which are the requirements for IPR in Horizon. We can see in that diagram here that IP management is actually a horizontal activity together with communication, dissemination, exploitation. And it's actually very important in order to have the expected impact of Horizon 2020 project. So we have the scientific results and the exploitation results, and through the IP management, we have a significant impact. So in order, actually the reason for having a new Horizon project, one of the main reasons is to develop new knowledge by using the existing knowledge of its partners. So everybody comes together in order to develop new knowledge. By saying that, it is very important to have a proper managing and protected knowledge in projects, and for the reasons to disclose knowledge and ideas safely, to prove the ownership of the results, to profit from commercial exploitation, a very important part of the project, and of course to prevent or discourage unauthorized use of the intellectual property rights by others. The information about IPR and Horizon can be found in Section 3 of the grant agreement. And the three basic Horizon 2020 IP concepts that are there, among other things, that we need to have to know and to have in the back of our head is first is the background, which is any IP intellectual property that is taking place actually before the project. So it's held by participants prior to their accession to the action, is needing for carry out the action or for exploring the result of the action, and is identified by participants. We know everybody identify the background knowledge before the start of the project. The second important is the results, which is formerly known as foreground. We can see it as foreground still in some texts. So the results actually is the IP that is generating during the duration of the project, as simple as that. And results generated outside of a project, of course, are not foreground. And we can see that we have the third term, which is sideground, which is the results that have been created in parallel to the project, but are not part of the project or project related. So this is considered to be sideground result. Now, briefly, we move forward to IPR and agROBOfood. As he's already mentioned, everything is in deliverable 7.3 about the IPR strategy in agROBOfood. Briefly, I'm going to say that we all know that agROBOfood is a complex project having several partners from different countries, but also SMEs, universities, research centers, and so on. So partners have probably different agendas and commercial and research agendas. So we need to have an IP and knowledge strategy in order to try to translate the intellectual assets into tangible results. So here in the next slide, we can see, this is from the deliverable, we can see agROBOfood IPR and knowledge management strategy, which is divided into 4 main parts. I'm going to go through it very, very briefly. We have the first part, which comes at the proposal state. We identify the state of the art. We have the management structure. We have the exploitable assets, and of course, the project interconnections. In the grant preparation phase, as I said earlier, we identify the IP background, which will be reevaluated. And of course, most importantly, we have the project implementation phase, where we have 4 distinct activities. The first is the IP identification, monitoring, and evaluation. The second activity is the IP protection. The third activity is the capacity escalation, which includes actually training. And the fourth is the IP risk management. And when we come to the end of the project, we have also the project conclusion phase, which actually we need to prepare the partners for the project conclusion in terms of IP. So this is more or less, in very few words, what the strategy is in agROBOfood. And finishing now the first part of the presentation, I would like to move forward to the second one, which has to do with robotics and intellectual property. So what's going on there? We say that we have the rise of the robots and artificial intelligence. Before I start this part of the presentation, I have to make to say that for the needs of the presentation, we are also going to talk about robotics and artificial intelligence, because there's 2 interconnected sectors. You will see why I'm saying that a little bit later. So we already know that robots and artificial intelligence have a significant impact in a number of sectors like transport, space, and of course agri-food and agriculture, where our projects comes for. And robots, of course, can increase productivity and contribute to better human welfare. So we know that they are already here. The question is, how can we assess innovation in the sector through IPR? One solution is to measure the innovation through the number of patents. And in order to have an idea of what's going on, in the next slide, we're going to see a sectoral and geographical mapping using patent data, and to see how the sector is going in the past years. So in this diagram, we see the number of patent filings from the 60s till 2012. So we can see here that, of course, especially after the 90s, 2000, the number is exploding. And we can see, of course, the countries that are leading the innovation in robotics, which is, of course, Japan, China, Korea, the United States, Germany, France, and Sweden. We will see more countries later on. So this is an interesting diagram to see the evolution. Again, here, because we talked about artificial intelligence, we can see now the years that it's coming from 2000 to 2060, the number of artificial intelligence pattern application, which is, and again, we can see that especially after 2010 or 2011, we see an explosion in the patent applications for artificial intelligence. Here again is very interesting table. We see the patents by country of applicant. So we see on the left the total. We have, of course, China. This is until 2060, so I guess that the newest information will be even better for China, I guess. Second place is Japan, South Korea, United States, and the European Union is on the 5th place. Not so encouraging, in my opinion. For the European Union, we see that Germany is leading, France and the UK third, Sweden, Netherlands, Italy, and so on and so forth. So we see that the European Union is not standing that well so far. Here is a very interesting diagram that shows the geographic distribution of robotic patents by country, but also by source of origin. And when I say source of origin, I mean whether it's academic or the public sector, or academic and public sector, companies or individuals. So it's interesting to see that depending on the country of origin, the source is very different. For example, China, the majority of innovation come from the academic and public sector. Japan, we have, of course, more companies. In South Korea, we see that there is a balance, but we also see the public sector. Of course, in the States, it's companies and individuals. In Germany and France, there still is companies, but we still see the public sector again playing a significant role. So it's interesting to see, depending on the regime, to put it this way, who is leading the innovation in robotics and artificial intelligence. And here, the last table is the top 10 robotics patent holders among university and public research organizations from 1995 to 2016. In the top of the table, we see the top 10 patenting worldwide, and we see that China again is leading the way. So the first 10 patenting worldwide, actually, it's only China and South Korea. So in order to see some familiar, to put it this way, European organizations, we need to go to the lower side of the table when we have the top 10 patent worldwide, excluding China. So we have to leave China out. And then we see in position number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, we see Fraunhofer from Germany, which is our partner here. So we're happy to see somebody at that table. And we're very happy to have Fraunhofer as a partner as well. But overall, again, we see that China and Korea is leading the way one more time in terms of universities and public research organizations. So let's move forward. So now we've seen the evolution, to put it this way, and the explosion of the innovation in the sector. And let's move to the next part to see what can, briefly, what can we protect from a robotic solution and artificial intelligence. The first thing we have to look at before we start is the need for utilizing intellectual property in the industry, in the sector. We know that industrial robotics is a capital intensive activity. So there is a lot of research done prior to commercialization, and it can take us years to bear fruit of our job. So it's very important to protect it. We know that more players are entering the robotic ecosystem, so the competition is getting harder and harder. So therefore, we need to secure a competitive commercial advantage through protecting the intellectual property, especially for inventions that can be easily reverse engineered. And of course, if we have a solid patent portfolio in our organization or company, we have the possibility to license and cross-license technologies, of course, strengthen business relations, and generate new revenue streams, for example, from royalties, and of course, avoid litigation. And especially for startups and small SMEs, it's very important in order to attract much needed investment, because if we have some patents as a startup, it's very easy to, let's say, impress and attract venture capitals and so on and so forth. So let's move and see what can be protected. In the beginning, we can see that some of the components of a robotic solution that can be protected are the mechanical components, the electrical controls, of course, the software, and the process of producing components. This is some examples, of course, because robotics is so complex. So this is some examples. How all this can be protected? Through patents, through trademarks, through copyright, through trade secrets, industrial designs, and cooperative approaches in pre-commercial stages. So let's have a look at the patents first. We've seen, of course, the details of the patents earlier. So patents are the main legal instrument used by robotic firms, and they're usually used for elements that can be easily reverse engineering. So if something can be easily reverse engineered, the solution, a good solution might be to patent it, to protect it. What can be patented? Mechanical features, techniques for building or manufacturing robotic equipment, techniques used in robotics to perform various tasks, unique systems of robotic equipment and the elements of the system that interact with another, as well as steps taken by computer algorithms that improve the function of a computer device. This is some examples. Trade secrets in robotics. Why use trade secrets in robotics? Usually trade secrets are better fitted to innovation that can be kept away from the public. For example, back-end software or some manufacturing processes would be difficult to reverse engineer or recreate, or of course is not eligible for a patent. So we can keep that as a secret. Why use trade secrets over patent, for example? The first reason is to avoid costs and complexities that are associated with patents. The second reason is that trade secrets obviously do not require the disclosure as the patent system does, so we keep them a secret. And through trade secrets, we can protect matters that patents cannot. For example, innovations related to software and computer code. Copyright. Some elements of robotic devices, especially software, as we discussed a little bit earlier, could be protected by copyright if they satisfy relevant requirements, some of them including originality. Of course, we know that software is crucial because without software, robots would actually be unable to function anyway, so it's very important to protect it through copyright. Trademark. We've seen the examples of trademark. Sometimes registering trademark is very crucial to protect robotic goodwill and reputation, especially when we're talking about business to consumer industry, because the brand is usually something that consumers are interested in. Of course, through trademarks, the robotic firms can build strong brand names and exploit the commercialization of their products. Industrial designs. As we said earlier, robots' physical appearance and look can play a central role in influencing consumers' choice. Also, the look of the robot, the design, affect a number of the functionalities of the robot. So, robot designs that can meet certain criteria, certain requirements, such as novelty and individual character, could be protected, protect the ornamental features of the machines through industrial designs. We can see here on the right two examples of US design patents. The first one is a whole robot, as we see, and the second is something like a robotic arm here. So we can see how the design was protected. And last but not least, a few words about cooperative approach in pre-commercial stages. We're talking about open source platforms where robotic firms, university researchers allow the other parties to use and improve existing content without, of course, enforcing IP rights. These platforms are used not only to develop software, but also blueprints, drawings, on research and product development. Some examples is the ROS, a robot operating system, which we had a very, very interesting presentation before that, so I'm not going to talk about it in detail. And another example is the iCube, which is an open source cognitive humanoid robotic platform developed in Italy. To the final part of this part of the presentation, which I'm going to spend only 2 minutes on, it's a very interesting discussion whether robots and artificial intelligence have actually intellectual property rights. This is an issue that is trending right now, to put it this way, but in the future it's going to be even more important as the year passes, and governments would actually need to adopt the intellectual property law in order to adjust to the constant changes in technology. And why is this important? What is the problem, to put this way? Which are the questions that arise with intellectual property, artificial intelligence, and robotics? In order to understand the issue, we have to say that the relationship between robotics and intellectual property is dual. And by saying that, we mean that on the one hand, robots may be regarded as objects of intellectual property. As we already seen, we can protect many parts of the robots. On the other hand, The question is, what's going on with the protection of the outputs of the robot? So we're talking about the robot-generated works. What's going on with that? Are these objects created or invented by a robot, the robot-generated work, copyrightable or patentable? This is a question. And if they are, the another question that arises here is to whom the ownership of these results should be allocated. So, do the person that actually manufacturing the machine or wrote the code for artificial intelligence software is entitled of IP, or is the user of the robot, or is the robot itself entitled of IP? These are the questions that actually arise and need to be discussed. Of course, there is no global answer to that question yet, because it's an issue that is still under debate for many years, and as I said, it will be in the future. We have different decisions in different countries, which are based on different laws and perception. And when I say perception, I mean, for example, the perceptions of the judges, because many cases went to the court, actually, in order to be resolved. We have some different decisions in China, the EU, the United States, Japan, UK, and so on and so forth. I think it's a very, very interesting topic, and we will follow on this and see what the developments will be in the future. And to finish my presentation, I will very, very briefly present a case study, which actually comes from our project, and it's the Initial Innovation Experiment 1, Soil Nitrogen Monitoring and Mapping, which is from our institute, Bioscience Institute. I'm sure you have the opportunity later on in the week to see the initial innovation experiments in more details. Briefly, we're talking about a robotic system for soil nitrogen monitoring and mapping, which can provide results of analysis within 15 to 20 minutes per sample in order to have accurate application of nitrogen fertilizer. And it's comprised of an autonomous robotic platform, a soil probe for soil sampling, a processing module for sample preparation, a sensor module to measure nitrogen concentration, and a digital platform for the visualization of results. So, on the right, you see a table when we submitted with the patent. We have a patent pending for that system. We're very happy for that. On the left, you can see the very brief description of how the patent was filled. It's a system and a method for intelligent soil sampling that has for a novelty a robotic system that samples soil based on the generation of sampling points through advanced artificial intelligence algorithms. This is a very, very brief description. And we're hoping to get the patent real soon in order to reinforce the commercialization of our innovation experiments. That was from me. Thank you very much for your time. I hope you find my presentation interesting. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Stavros. Interesting challenges also for the European community active in the robotics. So on robotics, we are lagging far behind, but I'm interested also where we are in the agri-food robotic field. I hope we are not that far lagging behind and that we are in the top 5. At least that is what we would like to see. Maybe our next presenter, Eric, might have an answer for that, because he is asked to give some impressions of our current agROBOfood network, and maybe he has an impression of where we are. So Eric, can you share your screen? Yeah, it's already started, so the floor is yours. Eric, you are muted, I assume.
That's it. Now you can hear.
And see you.
And see me. Yeah. Okay, so I'm so sorry. I will start again. So this is our overall strategy, Kees already mentioned. So we are now finishing the building stage. So main components of our network should be there and should be loaded. And then, of course, at the end of the 4 year, we should show and prove that our network works and is sustainable. How do we do that? So we have identified regional clusters. We have 7 of them, and 8 is the all regions. It's on the website. You can see how the regions are divided. Within the regions, we have different stakeholders. And you can join this agROBOfood network by the join button. And first question will be asked, would you like to be a business member? So just a user of services, or are you willing to be a digital innovation hub or a competence center, and also share your knowledge and your brokerage talents to bring people together and to bring robotics to a better future. So that's very important to know. If you are new in the network and you would like to enter, press the join button and follow the steps. And what will happen then? You will be part of the network then, divided in regions, connected to the regional cluster leader. For example, I'm the regional cluster leader of Northwest Europe. And then you will also eventually get a place. First, we also do some testing, and you will need to fill in some forms. But then eventually you will get a place on our website, on our portal, like we have here at Wageningen University and Research. It shows what kind of services you deliver, ecosystem services, technical services, and some business related services. And next to that, there's also a nice feedback system, so that your digital innovation hub is not only evaluated by our maturity test, because that's one part of it. The other part will be that also your customers can evaluate yourself by providing reviews, so that we also would like to make it very market driven. And what's also, of course, is important, that we will also load your digital innovation hub with showcases where you have provided support to. We did here do one. But I think when customers would like to see for a digital innovation which could help them, could at least find a few showcases which are related to their goals, and then connect to that digital innovation hub. This is one of the meetings we organized in our region. So you see here a picture of our regional meeting for Northwest Europe, where we have people from the UK, Ireland, Belgium, Luxembourg, and the Netherlands. And how does the network a little bit look like? So it often starts at a competence center as a research institute, but they are connected to an ecosystem in their own region with other research institutes, but they can also be consultants, they can be a branch organization of associations, end user associations, and there's one who is the orchestra in agri-food robotics. But in a region, you have many of these orchestras, and we call them a node. So a small ecosystem we call a node. The nodes should be connected to the regional cluster leader. So I'm the regional cluster leader of a few nodes, and then the regional cluster leaders are connected to a pan-European network. So that's the agROBOfood network in this case. You see here the 7 regions, and I also identified already in my region a few nodes, and these nodes are digital innovation hubs who are not only responsive, but also would like to be proactive and really feeding other hubs to help to grow the network. So that's a distinguish. So you can be a digital innovation hub in a more responsive way. You can also be a digital innovation hub in a more proactive way and be a node. So this is how we mapped our region till so far. You see the number of members and the associated members. So we have a lot of digital innovation hubs already, which play a role as digital innovation hub. And then on the other side, we have business members. They can grow, and they receive a newsletter. We would like to interact with them so that we know what they are doing. So we can also boost their skills to the network if needed. And then we are also working on a number of digital innovation hub who showed interest, but we are not ready to connect them. So this is how we are divided in Europe now these days. We deliver a lot of different services. I will share my presentation, and you have different services on different levels, from Digital Innovation Hub to SME. And I will share it, you can read it later. And we also have services that are related from Digital Innovation Hub to Digital Innovation Hubs. One of the nice services, for example, is the ROS Agriculture. We had a presentation already where we are creating common approaches, how we should use a technology and have a better start and more standardized start on all robotic application. We can learn from each other. What you can also get from the network is events. You can see our events for the coming months, but I ensure you that we are now also working on more a training and course portal, where we will also open up all trainings, and we have identified already hundreds of it related to agri-food and robotics. So that will also come soon to our website. But if you have a nice event, please share it with us and we will place it on our network. We have the OpenCalls already mentioned. Good to know that you can participate in these things. And then when you are connected as a digital innovation hub, you will also be connected to our back-end portal, which is Basecamp. And on the regional level, you can find all partners. You can send out messages to all partners in specific regions or specific interests. So we can build different platforms here. We can have a campfire, message board. We have files. And you also receive some other access to general files of agROBOfood. To the communication package, these kind of things, so that you can also start your own communication through agROBOfood. So yeah, this is my presentation. I tried to shorten it a little bit to have everyone aligned, and yeah, press the join button if you would like to join agROBOfood. Presentation, and I hope I won a little time.
Okay, thank you, Eric, for your presentation. And this is also an appetizer for the rest of the week, because tomorrow, Wednesday and Thursday, we will dig in a little bit deeper on the services, on the innovation experiments, and on our communication strategy and on our trainings. But Friday meeting is dedicated to strengthen and to discuss what we have learned so far, and how can we improve the cooperation within these regional communities. So join those meetings. For today, I would like to end the meeting. It's now 12:08, so 8 minutes longer, but people have the freedom to leave earlier if they want. For now, thanks for your contribution, and I hope to see you back tomorrow at 10:30. Thanks.
Okay, and I will answer some answers in the chat. I saw a few questions, but I will do it in the chat.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Bye-bye.